Welcome back to the PTCB Prep Guide. In this video, we're breaking down the drug categories you'll see at the pharmacy and on the PTCB exam, made simple, fun, and easy to remember. We're tackling a huge topic, anti-infectives, and we're going to start with the biggest, most tested group of them all, antibiotics. Let's get right into it. So here's our game plan. First, we need to know our enemy, so we'll look at how bacteria work. Then we'll meet the heroes, the antibiotics themselves. We're going to spend some serious time with the massive beta-lactam family before checking out some other key antibiotic teams. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with some pro tips to make sure this stuff sticks for your exam.
All right, first up, before we can really get how these drugs work, we got to understand what they're fighting against. Think of this part as, getting the secret intel on the bad guys. Because if you know their weaknesses, victory on the PTCB is pretty much guaranteed.
Okay, so how do we even tell bacteria apart? Well, scientists have this really cool method where they use a special stain, and depending on the bacteria's outer wall, it either soaks up that stain and turns purple, we call that gram-positive, or it doesn't, and it stays pink or red, that's gram-negative. Now, you might be thinking, purple, pink, who cares? Well, you do, because different antibiotics are designed to target one or the other. It's like knowing which key opens which lock, and it's a huge deal for the exam. Here's another concept you will absolutely see on the test. Some antibiotics are bactericidal. Think homicide. They're straight-up killers. They go in and destroy the bacteria. Others are bacteriostatic. Think static as in stationary. They don't kill the bacteria directly, they just stop it from growing and multiplying. They basically put them in handcuffs so your own immune system can come in and clean up the mess. So just remember, cidal is homicide and static is arrest. That little trick will save you on test day. So, now that we know the enemy, it's time to bring in the specialists, the antibiotics. These are the drugs designed to take down those bacterial invaders. But here's the thing, they don't all work the same way. Each class has its own unique superpower. You're going to hear this term a lot in pharmacology, mechanism of action. Don't let the fancy words scare you. All it means is, how does this drug work? What's its game plan? What's its superpower for taking down bacteria? Understanding this is the key to, well, everything.
So, for the most part, antibiotics use one of three main strategies. Some are cell wall inhibitors. They're like a demolition crew, just smashing down the bacteria's protective outer wall. Others are protein synthesis inhibitors. They basically throw a wrench in the bacteria's internal factories, so it can't build the things it needs to survive. And finally, some are enzyme blockers, which shut down critical machinery the bacteria needs to live.
All right, let's meet the biggest, most famous family in the entire antibiotic world, the beta-lactams. Seriously, these are the heavy hitters, the superstars. This group includes names you definitely know, like penicillins and cephalosporins. But, it's not that simple. There's a twist. Bacteria are incredibly smart. They don't just sit back and let themselves get destroyed. Over millions of years, they've evolved some pretty clever ways to defend themselves. So the question is, how do they fight back? This right here is like a tiny little arms race. The antibiotic's main weapon is a special chemical structure called a beta-lactam ring. Think of it like a key that's perfectly shaped to unlock and destroy the bacteria's cell wall. But some bacteria got smart and developed a shield. It's an enzyme called beta-lactamase, and this enzyme's only job is to break the antibiotic's key before it can even get to the lock. Pretty clever, right? So how do we outsmart the smart bacteria? We give our antibiotic a bodyguard. We combine the main antibiotic with something called a beta-lactamase inhibitor. This bodyguard's only mission is to find the bacteria's shield and neutralize it, leaving the antibiotic free to go do its job. You see this every single day at the pharmacy. A prescription for Augmentin? That's just amoxicillin paired up with its bodyguard, clavulinate. Okay, let's dive into the penicillins. Pro tip number 1 for the PTCB, if the generic name ends in cillin, it's a penicillin. You can see there are a few different types, from the original natural ones all the way to extended spectrum versions that can fight really tough gram-negative bugs like Pseudomonas. But the most important thing to remember for every single one of them is the allergy risk. A penicillin allergy is no joke, and you have to check for it every time. Next up, we've got the penicillin's cousins, the cephalosporins. Your memory trick here is the prefix ceph or ceph. These guys are grouped into generations, and it's actually pretty simple. The higher the generation number, the more powerful it is, especially against those tricky gram-negative bacteria. You can see the later generations can even cross into the brain to treat meningitis, and the newest 5th generation can even take on MRSA. You'll see drugs like Keflex and Rocephin all the time.
So let's quickly finish up the beta-lactam family. You have the carbapenems. These are the big guns, the heavy-duty, broad-spectrum antibiotics saved for serious infections. They end in penem. Then you've got monobactams, like Astrion-M. Their superpower is that they're generally safe for patients with a penicillin allergy, and they're laser-focused on gram-negative bacteria.
All right, we have totally conquered the beta-lactams. But they're not the only team on the field. Now we're going to look at some other really important antibiotic groups that use different strategies to win the fight.
First up, the quinolones. Your memory trick is that suffix, floxacin. Think ciprofloxacin, levofloxacin. Their mechanism is super cool. They're DNA blockers. They get inside the bacteria and stop it from copying its DNA, which means it can't reproduce. Game over. You will fill prescriptions for Cipro and Levaquin constantly.
Now let's look at 2 classes that use the same playbook. They are both protein synthesis inhibitors. Remember, they jam the bacteria's internal factories. First, you've got the macrolides. You've definitely heard of azithromycin, or the Z-Pack. Then there are the tetracyclines. The name gives this one away. They all end in cycline, like doxycycline. Both are extremely common. Sometimes you have to bring out the really big guns for serious infections. That's where aminoglycosides come in. They're for severe gram-negative infections, but you gotta be careful. They can have some serious side effects, like ear and kidney toxicity, which is a key fact for your exam. And then there's vancomycin. This is one of the main weapons we have to fight dangerous gram-positive infections like MRSA. And finally, let's just do a quick lightning round of a few other important antibiotics that don't really fit into those big families. Bactrim is a total workhorse, especially for UTIs. Zyvox is often used for really tough skin infections. And Flagyl is used for all sorts of different infections. You'll definitely want to be familiar with these names.
Phew, okay, we have covered a ton of information. So let's take a deep breath and boil it all down. What are the absolute most critical points you need to remember to crush these questions on the PTCB exam? Let's do a final review.
Seriously, if you remember only one thing from this entire explainer, please make it this. The suffix or the prefix tells the story. If you can just memorize that cillin means penicillin, cycline means tetracycline, floxacin means quinolone, and ceph means cephalosporin, you will be able to identify the drug class instantly. This is the ultimate shortcut for the exam.
All right, let's put this into a real-world pharmacy counter scenario. A patient hands you a script for amoxicillin. You pull up their profile and bam, a huge red flag pops up. Penicillin allergy. What's the move? You stop everything. You take that prescription straight to the pharmacist and let them know. This is non-negotiable. This is patient safety 101, and it's one of your most important jobs as a technician.
And that kind of brings us full circle. We've talked about this constant battle, this arms race between our drugs and the bacteria. We're already on our 5th generation of some antibiotics. So it really makes you think, as more bacteria become resistant, what does the next generation of antibiotics even look like? How will science have to evolve to stay one step ahead? If this video helped you understand this topic and how it's tested on the PTCB exam, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and drop a comment for more PTCB Prep Guide videos.